economical actions that make it be worth the decisions of the UN for the countries that commit the crime of violating international law and not following these steps of the UN. But then it happens a thing that is real, the financing the countries, the imperial countries that assault and end with entire peoples and look to hurt and damage the popular movements that fight for their liberation. They're the ones who finance the UN, and they say, since we don't like what you're doing, we're going to definance the international organisms for what? For them to disappear. So it is a debate that we must have clear. It is a fight. Believe this that I am saying. There's the fight against everything that we could have had in these last 25 years, but this is the most amazing, the most historical, the most exceptional, the one that has the looks and the eyes on planet Earth, on our country, on our leader, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Cilia Flores, in the authorities that we are assuming the powers of the state to accompany our acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, because what has happened in Venezuela and the answer that we have given has the planet amazed. Why? Because this is the people of Bolivar that is standing always, today, tomorrow, and especially in this moment to accomplish, and I am sure, the immediate liberation with no conditions of a hero of the homeland, as is Nicolas Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores, for whom we launch today a prayer for their life, their integrity, and for us to sooner than later to hug them in all of the national territory, in the countryside and the cities, not only of Venezuela but of the entire world. Long live Nicolas, long live Cilia. We will win. Thank you very much.
To Venezuela during a meeting of the network of jurists for the liberation of the constitutional president Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores, kidnapped by the U.S. after the military attacks of January 3rd in a clear violation of Venezuela's sovereignty and the international law. In this space, we're listening to statements of Attorney General of the Republic, Tarek Saab, who demanded as well honor and glory for the martyrs the Presidential Guard that fall fighting for the dignity of Venezuela. And after this last-minute information, we're going to begin right away with our news brief from the south. Let's jump right into the headlines of the day. In Cuba, thousands marched nationwide to honor the 32 combatants killed by U.S. military forces in the attack perpetrated against Venezuela on January 3rd. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, called for national unity and reaffirmed the country's sovereignty in her annual address. And in the United States, Minnesota authorities denounced the assault by more than 2,000 federal agents against anti-ICE protesters. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from Telesur Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Cuba, people gathered at the anti-imperialist tribune located in front of the U.S. Embassy in Havana to honor the 32 combatants killed by U.S. military forces in the attack perpetrated against Venezuela on January 3rd. At the ceremony, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel highlighted the courage of the combatants in their mission to protect Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores from imperialist forces. In this context, with banners and slogans, the Cuban people reaffirmed the their commitment to defending the sovereignty of Latin American countries and the Cuban Revolution, as well as their solidarity with the brotherly people of Venezuela. In addition, Cubans demanded that the U.S. government immediately release President Maduro and his wife. In this scenario, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, denounced the historical imperialist and interfering actions of the United States perpetrated against the precepts of international law.
The promoters of the attack and kidnapping of President Maduro and his wife appealed to the methods of fascism, defamation against the Bolivarian leaders even before launching cowardly against Venezuela, leaving behind all the limits of international law that up till that day guaranteed a minimal coexistence. The administration of the States has opened a barbaric era, a fascist era, without caring about what that can mean in terms of destruction and death. The current emperor in the White House and his Secretary of State have not stopped threatening us. I don't think that more pressure can be exercised, and the extreme levels to which the blockade has been increased to come here and destroy the place, that is what their imperial conception trying to subjugate us to. And this phrase has brought outrage to the people of Cuba. And this can only be understood in a country that has never promoted hate.
And from the Anti-Imperialist Tribune, the Cuban head of state highlighted the courage of the 32 combatants killed in the defense of the sovereignty of our America.
More pressure. Here we have not one, Here we have not one, but millions of those who will continue the deeds of Fidel and Raúl and that generation. They would have to kidnap millions or disappear us from the map, and even then, the ghost of this small island nation will continue to run through the world because they will not be able to subjugate it. No, Mr. Imperialists, we will not subjugate ourselves, and we do not like to be threatened. That is what Fidel said.
Also in this context, in the Cuban province of Holguín, citizens also took to the streets to honor the 32 Cuban soldiers killed during the assault committed by the United States in Venezuela. Thousands of Holguín residents gathered to pay posthumous homage to the fallen heroes, praising the soldiers' courage in defending the sovereignty and integrity of Venezuela and the presidential couple in the face of aggressions from the United States. At the town hall in front of the Calixto Garcia Central Park, citizens gathered not only to pay tribute to the combatants, but also to honor the commitment to nationalism that defines Cubans. On Friday, also Venezuela honored military and non-military personnel who participated in defending the country against the attacks perpetrated by the United States on January 3rd. Now we go live to Venezuela at this moment with informations that are being generated at this moment from the South American nation.
All that has been warned by Chavez for years. He warned us by Chavez and also Nicolas. These expressions concentrate an act of bravery and dignity, not only from the human or individual point of view, but also moral and representative of our name, by assuming, as always done by him, to the right and justice as his values in space of unity, battle, and in the name of God, at the close victory. The quote that I started with corresponds to the first declaration of President Nicolas Maduro after his kidnapping, and I wanted to start with that powerful phrase for the analysis in this wonderful meeting that today unites us. This has been given since it's almost providential how in barely a few seconds that it took President Nicolas Maduro to say of these words, each one of them are turned in a challenge for the kidnappers and the court in itself to try to know all of the entirety of international law. I wanted to start with this, an analysis that was done by some companions yesterday. I'm not going to read it entirely, I will share it later. Well, to thank Camila Fabri and Alex Saab for this meeting, and to thank the lawyers of Venezuela for this meeting that is so important, because what happened is a deadly stab to international law, and it was said by the Republic's prosecutor in chief, and who I also always thank for his friendship and love, and also being the lawyer of my father and Cilia, and you also have the job of being their lawyer at this time. This is the fourth time that you are going to defend them. International law is agonizing at this moment. Also greet the authorities. Carlos Beatriz Rodriguez, the President of the Supreme Justice Court. I was reading these sentences, and I have read it many times, of the constitutional room, and it is historical, both from the point of view of constitutional law and also from the judicial history of Venezuela. And that sentence is worthy of a study. I read it entirely, and the part that says, because even one could have think the temporary leave was going to be declared, but it cannot, and it is not going to be declared, and it says, without deciding of way, but not from the death. An extraordinary sentence to greet the Supreme Justice Court, the patriots, the General Prosecutor, brother, at the head of the defense, also greeting Dr. Silio Sanchez, the Executive Director of the Magistrate, and also Indriana Parada's lawyer, doctor, and also greeting the moral power defender of the people, Alfredo Ruiz, and also Gustavo Adolfo Vizcaíno Gil. I remember when I met him, I was 14 years of age, and my father had an assistant that had behaved wrongly in the assembly and had exited. It was tremendous, and Vizcaíno was working. I can't say that because you can be my father as well, but Vizcaíno came from the municipal council, used to be the lawyer of the municipal chamber of Caracas, of the metropolitan area that doesn't exist anymore. So thank you to everyone, also public defender Daniel Ramirez, and all the powers, the magistrates, deputies to the National Assembly, a hug. They expect a headline of Venezuelan television, and I have said it on Instagram on 6th and the 7th of January. A great victory is that we maintained the constitutional thread, and it is evidence the strength of our state, of our institutions, and of the Constitution, our mother, our social pact that is strong and in resistance. They have tried to vulnerate her and stain her many times, but they have not accomplished it. And here we are with feelings that are in the chest, but that turn into force to fight for the liberation of Nicolas and of Cilia. We maintain the institutionality of the country. The tribunal, their sentence on January 3rd at night in record time, saying the path that of the Constitution, of what the Constitution remarks that needs to be done, facing the physical impossibility of the president of being at the head of his function by a illegal kidnapping that has turned it into a symbol of resistance against imperialism and fascism. Nicolas Maduro is today, together with Cilia Flores, the world symbol of resistance, of loyalty, of bravery. They had to come with a disproportionate force because he did not show himself, he did not deliver himself. And when the subject is loyalty in the world, they would talk of Nicolas Maduro as a man that is firm and loyal to the Venezuelan people and to the legacy of Commander Chavez, a man with his head held high, with his faith in God, and also his faith in the people of Venezuela and the peoples of the world, and with the tranquility and the peace of spirit that is given by having a tranquil conscience. That is why we are a matter. And in matter, maybe physically he's not here, but in spirit and in the soul he is with us here, as Chavez was and is with us as well. Also, the lawyer that was graduated with the highest qualifications, a very studious person. Look, many things. I want to speak on some things. I won't extend myself, but it is important to enumerate some things. Everything started with civilian attacks in international waters. We have, I asked of you, an exercise of imagination, and I said it in a video conference. Imagine that in this book that I have in my hands is all the international with all of the compilations of international rights and law. I launched it to the air, and it falls open like this. That page that was left open, that article, has been violated against Venezuela. All of the norms of international law, I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly, I believe that it is very graphic. All of the norms established, I asked the general prosecutor said, after the World War, after the barbarism of hundreds of thousands of history of humanity, where the law of the strongest prevailed, a balance was established that has allowed humanity to have a path of development, and that is the base of right and law. You know it better than me. I am in the 7th semester of the university studying law, And I hope I can continue with it. Let's see if the dynamics now, because I am in the mission of my life is to accomplish the release of Nicolas and Cilia, and we're going to accomplish it. So, an armed invasion of a foreign army with no declaration of war, the murder of civilian population that was outside of the conflict, the kidnapping of a chief of state, and the forceful movement violating all of the immunities of a deputy with over 25 years of a trajectory, president of the National Assembly. Illicit appropriation of resources, of natural resources, of the attempt of appropriating, the taking of hostages, coercion or threat of an army to our country. And I coincide once again with the affirmations that was done by the Attorney General. International law is agonizing. The balances after 1945 have been broken, and I believe that it is the duty of Venezuela and of this movement that is being birthed today to raise their voices in favor of peace, as these songs say. Let's raise our voices in a chant in favor of peace. International law exists. Does it protect any country? And I ask, I do not have an answer for that question, and I won't answer it. I'm not a lawyer. I am an economist, a future lawyer, in the name of God. The balances after 1945 were broken, so I have notes here of the tasks. Brothers of the team, Indiana and Silvio, Alex and Camila. Public powers, as from my condition of a citizen of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and also a deputy to the National Assembly and president of the Commission of Interior Politics, we have to meet. We're going to take great laws and great changes to the code and all the laws that read and lead the policy of the country to make the justice closer to the people. I am at the order, and we're going to work because we have great tasks in the country. Firstly, to build permanently the unity. Unity is not decree, it is a daily effort, and as I said at the beginning, they expected for our destruction, and the aggression could have created a problem of internal order, but it is that they don't have anyone for them to do their dirty work, because Venezuela is a country of peace and people do not want war. We maintain the institutions, and I've said January 3rd, the historical sentence, January 5th, as it mandates. 11 in the morning, we were the elected deputies, and the past May 25th, we were installing the legislative power. Now we have commissions, and we're moving forward, and then immediately after it was constituted as an act of law, the national legislative power, we go and it is oath under an act of rights and laws as a constitutional mandate. The acting president, Dr. Delcy Rodriguez, as the constitution and the sentence mandates, and soon we will have, and I am sure, I don't know when, but we'll have the opening of the judicial year, and there the justice court will continue doing their work together with the civilian and all the courts, and it will continue being worked soon. And the attorney office is already investigating, and the public party powers are working, and the governors are governing. So the first task that I have said to our brothers here in the country is peace and unity, to maintain the peace of the republic, to maintain the internal order. The second task that is in the framework of unity as well is for the country to continue moving forward. We cannot stop ourselves. We must move forward in the politics, in the deep democracy, in the consultations of the communes, in the popular organized power. We doing what corresponds to us, governing, moving the country forward and guaranteeing the peace of the citizens in the social, closing each time the gap of inequality for the children to have education of quality in the United States, to work for the health system to continue moving forward, for the social gap to be reducing each time more, for all to have the opportunities. And our dream, the sin of Nicolas Maduro, if it can be called a sin, is of dreaming that the Venezuelan family has the opportunities of moving forward, of having a career, a work, a quality of life, of living of the biggest amount of social happiness, so advancing in the economical, in the petroleum industry, in the gas industry, petrochemistry, in the foods, in our food sovereignty, the industrialization of the country, the activation of the basic companies, moving forward. Maduro doesn't want the country to stop. Maduro wants the country to continue. For him, when he returns, we say, President, the country continues moving forward thanks to the plan that you designed and the team that you built and what you left us. Because what is happening today in Venezuela is the plan of Nicolas Maduro, with the team of Nicolas Maduro, with the objectives of Nicolas Maduro Moros and his team of work. That is what is happening today in Venezuela. All these scenarios, with the vice president that is now acting president, is the vice president of Maduro, and he said, if anything, there is the constitutional path, the plan of the 70s, the 5 objectives to negotiate, to move forward in relationships of respect with the United States and with any country of the world. Venezuela has to have relationships with the entire world. Turkey, Vietnam, Singapore, the Arab Emirates. And I believe that we have to have relationships with the US and embassies, such as with China and Russia, because that is our self-determination. I believe that we could think even of having diplomatic relationships, why not with Israel and Iran, as Turkey has and the Emirates have, and if we have any differences, to tell them from the framework of politics. That is an idea that I put in the framework of diplomacy. These are ideas that come to my mind. Venezuela must continue moving forward to being a country of peace, with commercial relationship with the entire world, and if there are problems, the right constitution, diplomatic mechanisms to solve them. The first task is peace, unity for peace. Second, unity to advance, and the third, the flame, the fire. The fire must be fed every day. A small piece, every single piece that we put in that flame, to maintain it alive, the flame for them to return us. President Nicolas Maduro, the President of the Republic, and Cilia Flores, Deputy and First Lady of the Republic, every day. I ask for your help for that. I ask for help because I am going to do it, and I will take to that flame, and I will keep it alive and fed. And for this forum, I have 3 tasks, and I will end because we have had breakfast and there's some hunger. We haven't been able to stop. Task, and I was thinking there, Alex and Camila, Indriana, Cilio, all of you public powers, the first task would be that I believe that from here we must exit today with a document of consensus signed by each one of us, and that in an independent way we go to the international organisms of the world in Venezuela and in the world, and forming commissions from here, and ask for the help for us to go to everywhere: Geneva, Vienna, New York. Kenya also has a building of the UN in Amsterdam, The Hague, to the parliaments of the world, to introduce as the lawyers of Venezuela, denouncing the aggression and the kidnapping of the chief of state. First work, a document of consensus that I believe can be ready today, denouncing judicially, point by point, no matter how in extent we all read it and correct it. And we put our efforts Second task, from this judicial movement, 24 regional chapters must come and to call all the lawyers of each state, of each federal entity, to join them and to do force. And the third task, for the first week of February, we're going to prepare a powerful international meeting of lawyers of the world for us to be the epicenter of international law and for us to cure the stab that international law has had. We're going to do it. We're going to be the doctors of international law, of the diplomacy of peace, of the no to war, of yes to peace, with the doctrine that Chavez taught us, and the doctrine that until January 2nd, and he continues teaching us, Nicolas Maduro. So 3 tasks for the battle, and in the name of my family, here we have Joseph, my brothers. So I ask an applause in my name and in my family members, and we all thank the support, and we will see you on the streets. So with international law and with the rights and with the moral and the intact dignity, we bring back Nicolas Maduro and Cilia Flores. So a hug, and long live the judicial movements of Venezuela and the peace of the country. Long live Venezuela till victory forever. Emotional words, and also with convinced.
We were listening at this hour to Deputy Nicolas Maduro, the son of President Nicolas Maduro, during a meeting of the network of jurists for the liberation of the constitutional president, Nicolas Maduro, and First Lady Cilia Flores, kidnapped by the U.S. after the military attacks of January 3rd, the most brutal stabbing to the international law, as referred by Deputy Nicolas Maduro at this moment. And after this last-minute information, we have come to the end of this news brief. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.